Hello and welcome to Vibra Finance. Tonight we have a very special episode with some very special guests. Before we get started, the topic of tonight is the history of money. We're going to put our own twist and spin on actual facts and events that have taken place and give our thoughts, facts, and opinions along with them. But before we do, a little hello from Vibra Finance.
At Vibra Finance, we seek out the hidden gems in cryptocurrency. We will tailor your portfolio to work for you. Are you ready to transition your investments from traditional markets to cryptocurrency? Are your coins staked and earning interest? Are you overwhelmed with all the jargon in crypto? Is your portfolio underperforming and you want to reposition into consistent winning blue chip coins and viable projects? Do you feel like you missed out on DeFi, Metaverse, and NFTs? Here at Vibra Finance, we provide you with the data, skills, and tools you need to stay on top of the digital asset market. Vibra Finance, we are the future of crypto.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Vibra Finance. Before we get started, please take this opportunity to hit the bell button, subscribe, and hit all for notifications. We have live with us Vibra Finance CEO Adam. Hello and welcome. And our special guest for now and this evening, Mr. Rags to Riches. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. What's up, guys? How we doing?
Hey, it's great. We're back on YouTube, bro. I think we were so shadow banned, immediately up being back. We're getting 10 times the amount of views out of nowhere. So I think we're finally broken free of those shackles. So
why or do they feel bad? Why did you get shadow banned? I mean, what did you do?
I don't know. Just told the truth.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know all about that. We know about that.
Telling the truth and doing bad things on Binance. That's how we got banned.
Bad things on Binance.
No, I'm just kidding. No more of those. All right, guys. So tonight, the topic is the history of money. And we're going to put our own little spin and walk through some historical events that have happened, which are factual. And I will post links and articles that we came across at a later date. I'll post those in the description below. And we're going to start today we're going to start all the way back in 1812. Now, in 1812, the War of 1812 allegedly began after a 20-year charter was not renewed for the central bank. After the war ended, the ensuing debt forced Congress to grant the central banks another 20-year charter. Okay, guys, who wants to take that one first? And where do you want to go with it?
I didn't realize that there were actually 3 central banks in existence in the United States. So that was a fact that I learned today, and it kind of put some things in perspective. And Andrew Jackson, all the stuff he fought for, we're seeing all of it kind of, I guess, escalate. And you see now the Federal Reserve, almost 200 years later, they are now stuck with their backs against the wall with nowhere to go. And this is pretty much the exact problem I feel like they saw throughout history and tried to flee from and put money in the people's hands and back the money by the people.
Yeah, I would say this too. I would say that the number one way to be able to also to pay for any type of conflict is to have access to a central bank. Because if you don't have the raw resources to do it, you can issue these IOUs. So you see that throughout history many, many times. You see it all the way up, to World War II. You see that into what we've seen here in the last 30 years with the military industrial complex in full tilt boogie here. So this type of thing certainly doesn't surprise me. I did a little bit of research on it. So after the first Bank of the United States, the first bank had expired in 1811. The war broke out in 1812, and that significantly strained the U.S. government's finances, and it had problems, financing the war. So it just shows you that having unlimited access to money is super, super important to impose your will on other nation states, and we see that all throughout time.
money is power and money is debt. Debt is power, right? Like,
It's true.
That's one thing that is a very well done illusion, is that, you know, we're about to default. You know, debt, each dollar bill we have, that is a debt note. So
Yep.
in theory, the more debt you have, the more power you have. We all know that these unpayable debts, they're never going to get paid. And I don't think they were ever meant to get paid when you really step back and look at it. But we're all just given this narrative, and it's ran with, but it's almost like a magic trick where you're told one thing, but what's really going on over here is something completely different.
Yeah, man, and it's just so saddening. It's saddening to know that countries are lied to as much as they are. It's saddening to know that people don't understand right now why the economy is bad in some cases. Now, some would argue that the economy is actually not bad. We know that inflation sucks. The economy wants to take off as hard and fast as possible. But it can't, because the Federal Reserve has to do its best to hold everybody back. Hold me back, bro. That's kind of what the Federal Reserve's doing right now. So
wouldn't it be nice if we had a president that would back us up like Mr. Jackson?
So go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, I think you should read it for the audience here.
Okay, so
let's say hi to Mr. Facing Reality, who's just joined us.
What's up, man?
Oh, Mr. Facing Reality, he is alive and well. Where are you?
He's muted.
Kareem called me and he asked me if I could watch his house for a week, so I'm at Kareem's house now.
I seriously thought that everybody had the same interior decorator. I was like, wow, they're a lot alike.
I fell for it the first time. I thought, damn, that guy's doing good.
I was like, man, these guys all have sweet apartments. Jeez. Okay, so we were just getting into the alleged story of the in 1830s. We'll give it a whole decade here to be very broad, so we're not have to be too specific here. So allegedly, Mr. Andrew Jackson became fed up with the Rothschild control over Congress and the government. He successfully eliminated the need for a central bank in 1836 by rallying Congress to vote against it. He was the only president allegedly ever to pay off our national debt. As a result, it is alleged that the Rothschilds plunged the country into political and economic chaos. Is it alleged or is it not? Who wants to take this one?
Who wants to take it?
Go ahead.
I'm not taking it first.
I mean, if history doesn't rhyme, but it often repeats. So if the same forces were pressuring the same entities 20 years before, and the result after became another war, and then 1913, when the Fed was created again, out of more turmoil, the 1907 scare, and then you see World War I a year later. So it's almost like these banks need wars, and because they're the most profitable thing to finance. And now 200 years later, you know, we're still we have military bases all around the world. Is it really necessary?
Hold on one second before you say I wanted to address this before we get too down in chat. Andre, I was not talking about Mr. Crumpet. I promise. It's not on my radar. It's not on my radar because the world's a stage. All of the world is a stage, as we know. So, Mr. Crumpet, Mr. Strumpet, Mr. Go Brandon, let's go Brandon. Anyway, speaking of Brandon. Anyway, just wanted to address that real quick.
This you know, if you try to look into this at all, it's tagged under the notion of a conspiracy theory. So with that out of the way, we'll just say that, you know, the Rothschilds at that time, they were successful bankers and they were successful financiers who had amassed a tremendous amount of wealth at that time through the usage of the central bank and through the usage of inflation. And not only through that, but they also, helped finance the British government. I think I've read about that during the Napoleonic Wars as well. But one of the things that was interesting was their influence wasn't just isolated towards like their country or their city or their region. It was more of a global type of thing. And when you have access to the power that they had access to through central banks and through financing wars, it's like, okay, should there be more wars? And of course they're going to say, yes, there should be more wars because that's how we get rich. This is also an issue with central banks is if you have access to unlimited money, there's a system of checks and balances that isn't there. And what is that system? It's like, oh, wait, before we decide to go to war, we might have to figure out how to pay for this. That doesn't exist in the system that we have today. So the question is, did they have enough influence over the financial institutions at that time to be able to move, I guess, kind of move this one way or the other? I think a lot of people say yes. I think that there's a lot of information out there that indicate that they do, but it's just a player in a game that is created to really, really benefit a small amount of people if they know how to play the game, I think. And I'm in the game right now and I don't know all the rules. So that's just where I'm at with it.
Yeah, it is really like there are two sides of it, because if starting at like the core as an individual, the tax laws are not the worst thing in this country. They're set up for you to start a business, have write-offs, employ local people around you, build a strong community. So there's great things that our tax laws allow us to do. But
yeah,
when you're talking with that much, when you have money to finance both sides and play both sides, it's a slippery slope for people that are not able to really see what's going on. And when you're able to, just influence media, propaganda, start little skirmishes, or just whatever it is, it really, really goes a long way on the population.
We've seen it. I mean, I don't think there's any question on anybody's mind, whether right or left, if George Soros is playing that game, if he likes to destabilize nations and then bet on cheap currency because he knows it's going to get some sort of financial backing from the United States. Like that's common knowledge, right? We've seen these characters rise and fall throughout history. Some of the stuff that he says publicly, I can't believe he gets away with it. Even in or Schwab and just everybody, man. So yeah, it's definitely there. These people play the game at a very, very high level for what maybe they're born into it, definitely born into it. But yeah, they play it to maintain power. And I would assume that absolute power does corrupt absolutely.
Oh yeah. Well, that's
look at or what facing reality is dealing with right now. I mean, the stuff that over the last couple of years that just everyday farmers have to deal with. Like, it's crazy. Well, we don't hear any of that in our news. We're not exposed to any of it at all. And there's people who are living in a nightmare situation, but we have no concept of it. So he's now leaving to go somewhere else, which was that the plan 10, 15 years ago? Would you even have thought of that, Erwin?
No. Because when I grew up, things were completely different. We were way more free. We were way more in tune with our surroundings. We didn't have the whole really big migration yet. So you had way more culture and way more based norms and values. And then over time, when the migration came and norms and values started to water down, and when nobody has a true heritage anymore, then your community just dies off. So I grew up within a block of houses where all the backyards would combine, and it wasn't even a fence. Everybody could just play around. It was just one big playing ground. By the time I was 12 or 13 years old, we all had like 2 meters, that's what, 12 feet fences? Everybody to themselves. You couldn't even look at the neighbor without somebody asking you what you're looking at. Don't dare to say hi. I mean, it makes no sense.
None of it does. I don't think it made any sense to Mr. Lincoln either in the 1850s. Abraham Lincoln continued in Mr. Jackson's footsteps, alleged footsteps, with the abolished central bank. He created a system that flourished on its own money. Allegedly, this is what led to his. We'll fill that in the blanks. And for those of you who are listening on Spotify, Apple, and iTunes, you can tune into YouTube live and watch our hand motions for this one. We're trying not to get banned so much. His monetary system was wiped out for years. His monetary system was wiped out for years. He came up with an alleged solution, and then what happened? Unemployment, a high surge of unemployment followed. And he said, I have two great enemies, the Southern army in front of me and the bankers in the rear. Of the two, one of my rear is my greatest foe. Well, I think like anybody sneaking up on your rear could be a foe, especially with their big stick. All right, who wants to go on this one?
No wonder we got.
That was it says 1850s. Is it the so he created the bank in the 1850s, but he was assassinated in the 1860s, I think, right? Into the war, 1864, 5. That's interesting. The first thing that popped in my head, I was like, okay, I wonder what ties JFK had to trying to abolish the central bank. That's the first thing that popped into my head. But we could go down that rabbit hole for a while too.
It's this almost the same. It's just a little bit different of a story, little different of it, but it's the same thing happening over and over and over and over throughout the centuries.
Yes. Patterns.
Yeah.
Patterns.
And DJ and Dougie, I'm not picking my nose. Okay. We're live. All right. Go ahead.
Sorry. Now we're going to slip into the panic of 1907. The global financial crisis inspired the monetary reform movement and led to the creation of the teddy bear piggy bank. You guys can call whatever you want to when you fly on this one, as long as it doesn't start with an F and end with a D.
Well, so this was interesting. So after after they do away with the central bank, they're looking back at history, they're looking back at the Constitution, and they're saying, okay, look at all these instances in history when governments have had control over the central bank, and look at what has always happened, which was governments on long enough time horizons weaponized the central bank against not only their enemies but also against their own people, and they used that as a weapon of war to wield against folks. So politicians in that time were extremely reluctant to create any type of centralized entity that would control the flow of money. But they were also having major issues because liquidity wasn't spread out properly across all these regions in the United States, and you were having run-on banks. So instead of coming up with a different solution, they came up with the solution that worked for small periods of time, relatively speaking, for other countries and other nations and other societies, instead of coming up with something new and innovative, which we see now. The effects of these conversations back in the early 1900s are destroying our country today.
Yep. And go ahead, Earl.
Wasn't also around this same era the Titanic, where the bankers
Oh,
disappears.
don't be jumping up on years on me.
Oh, my bad.
Don't you worry. We're sinking deep tonight.
Okay.
We're going.
And another one,
Yeah, you're right on point.
during this same era, pretty much the whole of the United States got destroyed by the Boston fire, the earthquakes, and the whole face of America was rebuilt along with this.
Oh, 1902, right?
Yeah.
I think it was
was
1902.
all in the same time era. They destroyed everything, created a new system, made sure that all the opponents, yeah, it's so beautifully orchestrated.
Yeah, and every time it's like you go down the rabbit hole, you learn something new, or like you come across something,
Yeah.
you're like, it connects some dots. And it's like the average person had no clue what was going on back then. Like they were worried about these guys. 7 or 6 of these guys at Jekyll Island controlled a quarter of the world's wealth. That's astronomical. And when you have that much power and money, and so everyone's worried about you guys monopolizing and just corrupting everything. We'll just create a new system and have the American people front the bill with introducing federal tax in 1914, which is right after the Federal Reserve, and then another war comes in. And it's like, Spanish flu is around the same time. So it's just, I don't know, a lot of coincidences.
Yeah, first vaccination program, supposedly.
There we go. Let's see, share my screen. Okay, so this is what you're talking about with the sinking ship. Starts with a T. So Mr. Morgan allegedly, he owned like a very large part of the shares that own this company. So they say he allegedly owned it, but whatever. Anyway, so without getting like too crazy on that one myself, these three fellas were said to be worth a big part of the action of what was going to come up next year with everything coming on here, the establishment of the Teddy Bear Act. Anyway, who wants to take this one away? Okay.
Yeah, so the Federal Reserve Act was the last minute. I'm going to read here. Was the last minute bill pushed through Congress on December 23rd, 1913, while Congress was away on vacation. If it was publicly exposed that these men had met at Jekyll Island, the bill would never have passed Congress. Its goal was to break the money trust, but it was written by it. Had that fact been known to the public would never have accepted it. Is it coincidence that the federal tax was created at the same time to front the bill? Taxing the citizens and inflation are a 1-2 blow to wealth creation. The following year, World War II broke out. We're just seeing pattern after pattern after pattern here, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. You don't have to look hard for it.
Yeah.
That's the year. I can't see for the Spanish flu here.
No, thanks.
There was 1918. Okay.
Yeah.
So there we go. So within 10 years, 1907, complete economic chaos to one of the biggest, outbreaks of the time. So people are completely panicking. There's no media back then. To get news across the country, would you put it on a horse and carriage and start walking? It's like, or a telegram maybe, or a telegraph, if it even worked. Alexander Graham Bell was even alive then. But
Yeah,
it's a different world.
Oh, brother.
Well, what was interesting about the meeting at Jekyll Island were really I would say the participants, right? So you've got members of Congress, you've got the assistant treasury secretary, you've got the president of the National City Bank of New York, you've got one of the senior partners at JP Morgan, and then you've got one of the banking representatives of the Rothschild family that was there at the time. And the fact that, again, the The Federal Reserve it was birthed in darkness and secrecy from the start. And it's still the exact same way. And for us to have this conversation about this, if we went to, imagine that we went to a major university somewhere in the world, and we sat out front of the economics hall, and we had a loudspeaker, and we start talking about these things. They would call us crazy because they don't know. That shit isn't taught. Yeah, they taught 1913 XYZ happened, but they don't go into the detail about the ramifications of what was actually occurring at that time. Do I think that all the men in that room had nefarious goals? No, but I know the men in that room had some ideas going through their heads, say, hey, we're about to make out like bandits right now, or at least somebody is, or there is something major in this for me. So, I find it interesting, the parties that were in there. I find it interesting that after all of the debate and all of the vitriol about people just not wanting the government to take over the banking system, that the only way to get this done is not to have a battle in the battlefield of ideas. They had to do it in a dark room in a dark alley in a back corner.
Yeah, and even the type of person it takes to be to have a seat at that table. You're not just going to be like a nice guy that's going to help out your neighbor. You're going to stop and give someone help. No, you are going to look to scam and screw over everybody possible. Even if you're born into that, if you don't, I guess, live it up, or you don't show you're worth it, you're gone. So you got to be cut from a certain cloth to even be there. And
yeah, the mastermind, that's what it was. And what's crazy is these people weren't the people who put it into play. It had to go through Congress, right? So this was just the mastermind behind it. These were the puppet masters, and that's what was occurring here.
Yep. And then they pass it through. It's just like we were talking, the patent of the science, the quoting it. I was doing a deep dive into that, and was patented again on Christmas Eve in 2013 or 14. And it's like, you can't make this stuff up. But now everything is trust it. And it's a patented phrase. That's literally like a paid catchphrase.
It's wild, man. Yeah. So they were on a gold standard pretty much from the late 1800s until about 1933. I think we're actually going to be talking about that, so I don't want to jump the gun.
No, actually, I was going to say let's go right to 1933 because I was gonna go right to 1934. So why skip a year? Let's go to 33.
Yeah, so this was a pretty momentous time, right? So it was on a gold standard from the late 1800s to about this time, which was right during the Great Depression, 1933. My grandfather was actually born in 1928. So and you know what I wish, by the way, guys, if you know an old person, go freaking talk to him. And I wish I could tell myself that. I wish I had a notepad, and I wish I just hired somebody to pick my grandfather's brain and create an encyclopedia of his knowledge. Because, man, I'm talking about these subjects now. My grandfather was there. I'm like, what is going on? So there's so many cool things I could have asked him, but you have 1933, FDR took the U.S. off of the gold standard when he signed that act, and that pretty much just prohibited the possession of gold in private hands. Okay, and it transferred all the country's gold to the U.S. Treasury. So, a lot of reasons come up as to why they actually did that. I would be interested to see what you guys think about that first.
Well, I think what the reason behind it that publicly they came out with was so foreign countries basically can't create a run on us.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, it's here's the narrative, but what's really going on now looking back on it. And you kind of feel bad for people like your grandpa that worked their whole lives, that did the right thing always, but because of the stuff with the Jekyll, with these guys, the way they created this system with inflation, knowing this is going to happen, taxing the people to front the bill for the money we are now printing and giving you at an interest rate. I mean, how many $30 trillion were in debt? I mean, what's 1% of that? And so that, I mean, it's astronomical amount of money. And so, I mean, yeah, it's crazy, the narratives, and I feel like nothing has changed today. It's the same thing. You put people on one side or the other, and you got to be this or that, pro this or anti that, and there's no in between. But there is. If you just ignore it all and tune out of it, everything is an offer at the end of the day. You can build your own stuff. You can have your own supply chains, but it just takes a lot of work, and a lot of people aren't willing to do that. And that's where I see stuff starting to change now, is people want to get back to the roots of what made America great. When people could tie their shoes, when people knew how to grow a tomato, not just look at a photo. I mean, kids now, I mean, I would bet you 9 out of 10 kids under 20 years old, they cannot read a clock unless it's digitally written out.
That's freaking wild, dude.
My cousin,
that is so true.
And they cannot read clock.
And they can't even undo a bra strap either. Sorry, Lindsay. But it's true, guys. It's true. With one hand. I mean, that used to be a pivotal thing when I was a kid, man. But dude,
Lesson one.
Alan says this is important. Alan talks about the McFadden Act. And one of the things the McFadden Act did, which is kind of similar to what they did with nationalizing insurance in the United States, or trying to go down that road, they stopped intrastate competition. A bank could not be opened outside of the state. That destroys competition, and it screws all of the customers. We're the ones who get screwed, and you have essentially, if you can't have people compete across state lines, then it's going to be much easier for these individual entities and central banks, et cetera, to be able to control every aspect of what's happening in the banking industry. So that was really one of the, like you said, like one of the nails in the coffin there. So.
You know, yeah, that Hexaco, and that's why, like, what you're doing with Texan is so important. You know, getting people behind a movement, getting people together, and just at least waking them up and letting them know what's going on, so you can actually make a rational decision, not one that's clouded with delusion.
Yeah, you got to throw your weight. At this point in my life, and based on what I've studied, you got to throw your weight behind the people that are unafraid to call people out, to speak truth to power. And that's what's happening. You know, we are all on this stream right now. Everybody here is in chat, and they hear me talk about this group in Texas, and they shrivel up. Some people shrivel up. I know you guys don't, but they freak out. They're like, oh, those bad guys over there, whatever. I'm like, listen, man, this is a 501c4 that cares very, very much about the values that America was founded on, which is why they're doing what they're doing. And one of the things that's near and dear to my heart is pushing back against a government that is stealing from people, and they have no idea they're being stolen from. It's the most disgusting thing in my book. If you really want to piss me off, you steal something from me. And I've been that way since I was a child, and I will hunt you down. And that's how I feel right now. And I'm so upset that nobody understands how they're being stolen from. And really what they're doing, they're just being fed inflation, and they have these great lives. And it's just like the heroin effect. Let's make everybody happy, and they won't ask questions. Where's the money come from? Until it blows up in their face. So we'll come back down to earth here and talk about the Federal Reserve during World War II.
I mean, you could keep going with it all day, because I couldn't.
Yeah. Let me guess. They created some kind of economic disaster, a war broke out, and then a disease came and spread.
Well, the Federal Reserve's role during WW2 from 1941 to 1945, the Federal Reserve was supported the war effort in several ways. It helped to finance wartime spending, fund our allies, embargo our enemies, stabilize the economy, and plan the return to peacetime activities. All right, then.
Yeah.
After World War II, we experienced the Great Depression. It was until after World War II that the United States became a world power. Interesting.
World War One. World War One. Little. Was that typo? Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Was that my typo?
Well,
No.
here's what's crazy. This will go down in history as the biggest redistribution of wealth to a nation state that has ever occurred, that we know in recorded history. And that's because the United States knew that these countries in Europe were, they're at war. Their GDP was destroyed in some instances. Their manufacturing was wrecked. Both World War I and World War II. This is really that range of time. So what the United States started allowing these people to do was pay for all the goods, all of the ammunition, all of the food, all of the vehicles, all of the aid, all of the support in gold. So what happened after World War I and World War II, all of the gold was in the American coffers, the U.S. coffers. And it was huge. It's the biggest bargaining chip you could ever ask for. So that's why after World War II, I think you had about, some nerds in the chat are going to freak out about this because I don't know the exact number, but I think it was 122 nations decided to use the dollar as their currency. Now, why did they do that? It's because we were on the gold standard, and they never thought for 1,000 years that our currency would be devalued into oblivion because we were sitting on so much gold and we were issuing one for one, right? At that time, or close to it. So what happened if we fast forward, I don't know what your next slide's going to be. Yeah, so Richard Nixon, 1971, exactly where I wanted to go with that.
I knew.
Richard Nixon, they took us off. They ended the Bretton Woods Agreement, okay? And what that meant was they now took the governor off the damn engine, and they were able to print money to get them out of a very, very sticky situation economically at that time. They were dealing with a lot of debt from the war as well themselves. They were dealing with debt for other reasons. So the easy way out was to go ahead and just start printing money. And effectively, Richard Nixon, I think going back to 1969, if I'm not mistaken, the United States money supply since 1969 has taken off almost 15,000%. The total money supply. All right. That's a lot. That's quite a bit. It's trillions and trillions of dollars here. So, here we are, 1971.
August 15th, 1971, President Richard Nixon announces that the United States will no longer convert dollars to a gold at a fixed value, effectively ending the Bretton Woods system. And December 18th, the U.S. dollar is devalued for the second time in history. So.
Yeah. And so now here's what they have you thinking, and here's what they have you wondering. I've talked, so one of my friends, maybe he'll see this one day, he probably never will. He was one of the primary speechwriters for the Secretary of Commerce. And I asked him about this. I said, hey man, like, are we ever gonna? And he's left leaning, okay, good friend from high school, but he's just full tilt boogie left. And I said, what's your answer for this? What's your answer for trying to get this, the biggest problem in the room, and the biggest problem that's been there for the last 150 years? what's your plan for this? And he basically tells me that money isn't real. And that's what they want people to believe. They want people to believe that money can just come from nowhere. They want people to believe that these horrible, nasty libertarians and these horrible, nasty gingers with Texan token hats on them, they just want to suppress you, and they want to take away all your money and all that bullshit. That's all it is. But they move the goalposts psychologically to make people believe that money actually can grow on trees. All right. So at this point in time in society, that's exactly what everybody thinks. That's what the left thinks about this. Okay. I'm trying not to jump too much because, you know, we're talking about the debt ceiling being increased, and I'm not going to go deep into it because I want to screw the time frame up here. But it's like, there is no difference between Democrats and Republicans with this. How do you know that, Brandon? Well, the Republicans, what are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to repeal back the Democrats, you know, giving everybody loan forgiveness, and they're trying to repeal and take back the $30 or $100 billion for the carbon credit for businesses and stuff. Republicans are trying to do the right thing, and then I'm like, okay, well, what's the difference between being in a jet and crashing into the ground at 400 miles an hour or 450 miles an hour? Okay, there's no difference. You're dead. So that's how I know. And that is the difference, 100%. There's nobody that is stepping up to tackle this. And I don't know if there ever will be. It's going to be, it could literally be suicide, literally, right? Because people don't want anybody to tackle that problem. The military industrial complex doesn't want anybody to tackle that problem. The teachers unions, who are the huge benefactors of massive amounts of inflation, they don't want to tackle these problems. They don't want anybody to. The medicine, right? So now we have this technological and I would say, you know, medicinal industry that is a healthcare industry that is gobbling up inflation at incredible rates. And guess what? When they put those billions and billions and billions of dollars to medical facilities all across the nation during COVID, and then we came out of COVID and everything was okay, did they ask for that money back? Did the government ask for that money back? Hell no. And how do you know? Guys, I guarantee somebody in this chat right now, I guarantee you can think of a hospital in your hometown right now that is adding a 20-story addition, okay? Or they're building 15 clinics, or they're building emergency rooms at the corner of every major intersection. It's because they have the money to do it. It's because it was printed and given to them. And they're going to have money to do it for a long time. And what's even more nefarious is how they'll take that money and they'll lock it up in treasury bonds and get more inflation. It's crazy. The money that off of your backs, okay, the money that people work all the time, they pay into taxes, and the government devalues that money, they take and give it back to the Treasury Department and put it into short-term or medium-term and long-term treasury bonds, and they pay them a guaranteed 8% because it's backed by the full faith and the United States government. Crazy. All right, sorry. That was like I was going. I had to talk about it. Sorry.
No, it's so
keep going.
It's racketeering, it's extortion, it's money laundering, and they're passing it through us. It's wild.
Charlie's 19th birthday party was extremely lucrative. Let's just say that. And before that, we had the Spanish sniffles in 1914. That was also very lucrative for certain entities. So it's important that we speak about these things and preach on, please, because that allows us to show that there are patterns throughout history. And like I said earlier, the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is about 6 months. Well, here we are in a 6 month time period, or we're in like a 6 minute time period on Twitter and media, what we're allowed to see, right? So for this news to travel finally, like, why are we being allowed to read these things finally? Like, why are these things come to light? Because a lot of it has been pulled off the internet. As you know, like a lot of these things are taught in school. So it has to be spoken about somewhere. So thanks for sharing it.
It's frustrating. It
And
hurts.
supposedly to history, this is the 3rd century that we're doing it. Because 1918 we had the Spanish flu. Well, 2018 we had sniffles, but in 1818 we had the plague, and in 1718 we had another one. So according to our recorded history, so every 100 years, exactly the same scenario over and over.
Well, my moon friends know all about that, but I won't go sideways. I'll get fired tonight.
Brad, when you were talking about how like, oh, the right left paradigm is so distorted now, and it does not exist. If you're still caught up on Republicans and Democrats in this day, it's like, man, you know, when I was a kid, a staunch liberal wanted to breastfeed and have organic gardens.
Yeah.
And now that's a conservative 30 years later. And it's like everything is polar opposites. And it's like, you know, Trump, the Republicans, spent more money than anyone else. You know, he got the country to lock down,
Right.
which he never could do under a Democrat. And now, you know, under Biden, what do you know? They're tightening up the economy and shutting stuff, you know, not shutting stuff down, but just tightening overall. And the stuff, the agendas are the complete opposite. The Republican agendas get pushed over on the Democratic parties. And when the Republicans are in, you see the liberal agendas come through. It's the polar opposite.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our compliance team is on the phone, and they're saying stop using the D word. Thanks.
So it's hilarious when I'm on social media. Sometimes I'm on YouTube or Twitter, or sometimes I'm talking to friends, and they just automatically assume that because I'm preaching fiscal financial responsibility, and because I'm not liking Target, and because I'm not liking Bud Light, and because I'm not liking these companies, that's right, PBR all the way. Because I'm saying these things, what do they say? They say, you're a Trump guy. You're a MAGA Republican. You're a horrible, horrible person. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And I'm like, guys, why would you assume that? It's because that's what Republicans say. And I was like, well, they might say things like that, and libertarians might say things like that, but they don't really do anything about it. And, you know, we were talking about, I was doing some research earlier for a stream, and I was looking up the difference in the amount of debt with the Republicans' plan. You know, they're in negotiations right now to shut down the government. The difference in the amount of debt in 10 years between the Republicans and Democrats will have the debt at 52 trillion. Republicans will have the debt at 47 trillion. Big whoop. Okay. So when you think about it that way, the question then becomes, why are they even negotiating? Like, what's the point here? What's really the point? If the leaders of either party would take a step back, or I guess Republicans, because they're against this passing, it's like, okay, if the difference is only this much, then we should probably just go ahead and pass it and then fight a different type of war. Okay, fight a different type of argument right now. And that argument is, okay, we funded the government, we've stayed alive a little bit longer, we've lengthened our rope a little bit. Okay, we're still walking out on the plank. All right, so what can we do to really solve this and fix this? It's just going to take the person or the people. The person to do this is going to just have to be, it's going to have to be sent from God himself. There's no other way, because it's absolute political suicide to go and try to fix this, because it's going to upend the status quo in every single way. I don't think that person stays alive. But here's the other unfortunate side of this whole argument, folks. Big unfortunate side. Every man, every woman, every person, every country has their breaking point. And I'm not saying that in a threatening way. I'm just saying that in such a way that says, look at freaking history. Look at history. When the people get upset, who are the first people to go down? It's the dang politicians, man. And I think that they are so far detached from reality and so far detached from Main Street that they think they just live they live in a different universe than everybody else. I don't think they really get what can happen when things really get bad. And it doesn't matter what your record was. It doesn't matter if you voted up or down.
They're celebrities now.
When the mob comes, like, there's nothing you can do, man. You better own a damn submarine. That's all I gotta say.
Well, and Rag,
I'm claustrophobic.
One of my clients, he's like almost 70 now, and he's retired. And after 2008, like I met him doing commercial real estate, and he actually wrote an act called the Monetary Reform Act, and it puts all of the power in the tax-paying citizens. So if you pay taxes, it's like a co-op. And I've read through it, and it makes perfect sense, and it would work perfectly. And he's taken it to local senators, local congressmen, and they all looked at him and they were like, "This is perfect, but do you want to get killed? Do you want me to get killed?
Yeah,
it's never going to work." So they literally told him, "This is brilliant, but I can't do anything with it." And one of them was actually Kristen Gillibrand. She was up in Saratoga 10 years ago. Now she's in the middle of this crypto mix. I was at a fundraiser for her in like 2010 when she was running for like local Senate, and now she's local Congress. So she's worked her way up so far, but just to know that he's putting together a perfect solution that's been well thought out, and it's basically there's a no go. So the solution, our society can't handle fixing it. It's so I don't know how we back out of the situation. We've created such a problem. I don't see a way out of this one without the whole house of cards burning down inevitably.
And here's the sad part, guys. Here's the rough part. And this is going to be the biggest impediment to any sort of progress. Politicians going to have to look the nation in the eye, and they're going to have to tell them, guys, we're going to have to suffer. In order to get this under control, the country is going to have to suffer, because conflict delayed is conflict multiplied, and we've gone down this road too long for us not to feel pain to try to reverse it. That's the biggest impediment. How do you deliver that message? How do you tell somebody that's on welfare and they're completely addicted to the inflation? Or how do you tell somebody who's a federal employee, they're completely addicted to the inflation, that A, they're going to get pay cuts, or B, they're not going to get raises, or this or that? Like, how do you deliver that? And it's extremely, extremely difficult. So it's going to take first understanding. And I just don't, guys, I really don't believe that. I don't believe that the nation as a whole is as informed as they need to be, and I don't think they ever will be. I don't think they have any reason to care anymore.
How do you tell someone that is poor, that has 2 iPhones and a car, versus a third world country when someone's poor, they live off $1 a day? How do you break that? Like, give me, I need more. Everything is just so out of whack and so distorted now from even when I was a kid. It's just gotten so much different in 30 years, 25 years. You see how much phones can destroy an entire generation. Just the little things of reading a clock, tying your shoes, it's crazy. And I don't know if it was done on purpose or whatever, but it's going to take 10 times the amount of energy and effort to undo this high we've been on.
Well, I mean, so for so long, so many generations, belief systems were imposed upon the youth. And now the youth has access to technology and education outside of their parental and family units. Now they have the opportunity to seek these things out for themselves if they're curious. However, so many children these days are just spoon-fed technology. And I mean, I see I'm sorry, I get like mad about it. I see babies being put in front of tablets to keep them quiet. And I think like, okay, I understand it. It's an overwhelming world. There's a lot going on, but to like hand your child a tablet instead of taking them out and like teaching them how to dig in the dirt, teaching, like Freddie said a few lines up in the chat, like something's coming to whatever reality, excuse me, that we live in. I'm having a hard time getting this out, probably because it's true, that like men are, and I don't mean this in a way, just I say men is like all encompassing, men and women. When I speak of men, I mean all people on earth. We're soft these days because we haven't had these like, we have so many, we have everything at our fingertips instantly, and everything's available for purchase on pennies of the dollar. Well, now it's not pennies of the dollar anymore, and people are so used to that instant gratification that they can't get off of this. Like it's like a dopamine rush with spending money. But like Adam said, if you're sitting there and you have 2 brand new phones and a brand new car, and then you are like, man, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent. Like your priorities are just out of whack. So I think that a hard reset, like, we have a really.
And then you go on social media and it's like Mr. Beast. I'll give you $1 million if you just do it. So like these little kids are like, wow, $1 million. My dad goes to work every day and makes 50 grand. Like what a loser. And like this whole mentality that's being created it's so toxic, and like it's so important that we build Hexaco and like we don't screw this up for the next generation. Like it's already getting so bad, and like you could see kids that the hope is there. If you shelter them from tablets and don't provide access to that stuff, there's hope out there. It's just you got to put the time in. Hopefully this next bull run, it changes, it like really makes people step back and start building instead of just chirping and talking.
Man, there's so much. I got so many. I got like 2 or 3 stories I could tell. I would say this. Let me say this. Okay. So I think I told you guys back. Well, I'm not going to say it. Let's just say I was reading something today. And this was a firsthand account of being held captive by Native Americans back in the mid to late 1600s. Okay. And it was from this woman. She was a Puritan. And back in the late 1600s, essentially what you had happen was the original governor of the colonies landed. They made some peace agreements with the local Native Americans there, and they lived somewhat peacefully until essentially both of the leaders passed away, and the new guys came into power, and they beefed, and it got ugly real quick. So 1670s, 1675, this lady is writing this firsthand account of waking up at about 6 o'clock in the morning on a February morning, looking out in the distance over her small town. This is like a town of like 100 people. Okay. And they had buildings, they had churches and all that, a church. And she sees smoke billowing against the horizon. And she sees fire everywhere, first thing in the morning. Okay. And she hears people screaming. She hears people crying. And she hears gunshots going off. She hears muskets. The Native Americans had muskets. The colonists had muskets. And she talks about the brutality of the time. And she talks about how one of the things that they would do, they would come and take their axe. They would knock people upside the head, knock them unconscious, strip them completely naked, and then gut them right there in front of everybody. Okay. And then not only that, during this siege, her child gets shot through the hand and into the gut. He's only 6 years old. She gets shot in the side. Her entire family and everybody that she ever knew was gone just like that. And for some reason, they chose her and her son to stay alive. Okay. And they allowed that lady to keep her son. He's shot in the gut and shot in the hand, no medical attention. They allowed her to watch him slowly die. And he died 9 days later. All right. Why the hell am I telling this story right now? Everybody's like, dude, he just went off the deep end. I am telling this story right now to prove to everybody that we have no idea what hard times are. Our hard times are nothing. And to take it further, after the Native Americans, because they were beefing, after that happened, the army went after the Native Americans. And it talks about that whole tragedy too. Guys, we don't know what hard times are. Us cutting back is still like paradise as compared to 99.9% of all of human history. I just want to point that out. And people are so addicted to the tit of government and inflation that they will freak out. They will act like small toddlers and throw temper tantrums and hissy fits if anything changes one iota, right? So it's like, we got to keep things in perspective here, man. We are so taken care of. And here's another thing. You were talking about the rest of the world that only makes $1, right? Where, you know, a poor person here in the States is nothing compared to a poor person here, let's say in Southwest Asia, or let's say in Africa, or let's say in, you know, let's just say the country of India. Guys, I've been to West Africa. I've seen the people that make very little, very, very little money, and they are 10 million times happier than any of the people that we have here. Any of the people. I had a guy that I knew about 5 or 6 years ago. It was a couple, and this girl worked with my wife, and they get some type of settlement. They got 140 G's in their bank account. Okay, this happened Thursday. Friday, they roll up to my house, and I might have told this story before Facing Reality. They roll up to my house. I'm not even kidding you. They had gone to the mall. The first purchase that they made was 40 Nike boxes in the back of their beat up, like Pinto looking vehicle. I don't know how much they spent on Nikes, but there were 40 pair. Within 45 days, they had blown through $140,000, and they are asking me for a loan. All right.
Amazing.
We have so many issues that we have got to overcome. We got so many issues. How do you fix that? You got to save people from themselves. The whole thing that Richard says, for example, he is so right. You know, it's like they are not going to do it on their own. So you got to I don't know how else to do it. We're not going to teach these people the right way to do it because they're not ready to accept any of the information. You just have to have a huge force for good that hopefully does the right thing for people when they gain the position to be able to do the right thing for people. So that's it, man. And hopefully you just gotta, that's why, and we'll bring it all the way back down to crypto seems so far away to me right now. I'm sorry. It just seems so far away and distant. But if you bring it back to crypto, the ability to code these things really saves people. The ability to lock stuff up really, really saves people. And it's not just a joke, and it's not a Ponzi, and it's not a scheme and a scam. And Wall Street knows it works because they make people lock shit up too for their 401ks and their IRAs and all that stuff and their CDs. They do the same thing, but we're accused of being Ponzi's when we do it. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why we do crypto.
Alan had a comment, and that's why community is wealth and family's wealth, because if you're dirt poor and you're a good neighbor and you've helped your neighbors out and they know you don't have anything, they'll give you something to help you out. So we've now become the hate your neighbor, this whole I don't even know where it's coming from, but it's the polar opposite of what you actually need to thrive. You need your neighbor there if you run out of stuff or if you actually have nothing. You want them there. You want to know people around you, not have a barrier or a wall up with your next door neighbor. It's crazy.
People are insecure to welcome their neighbors into their house because then they could see that they're not the Joneses. They don't actually have to for them.
That is so true.
I'm so fortunate, man. I'm going to also argue the other side of this because I have the ability to put myself in their shoes. How hard would it be for you to have a silver spoon your whole life and then have to live in a friggin' trailer park for 3 or 4 years? That would be extremely difficult, man.
It's all about perspective, man. It's all about perspective. If you are sitting in there thinking man, I lost my palace, I lost everything, all you did was lose possessions. The only thing that you have that you can truly go forward with everywhere is your being and your mindset. So if you stay in that scarcity mindset of, man, I had everything and now I lost everything, then you're playing on chains and pools you don't belong in. But
Yeah.
like, and I seriously though, it's all in the mind. Sorry, I apologize for cutting you off on that one.
You did not cut me off. I've been cutting you guys off the whole damn time. I like cutting Facing Reality off, though.
No, but it's so true what you said about the happiness is different. Before my oldest daughter was born, we were 3 weeks in Bali. And this was about 3 or 4 weeks after the bombing. So it was literally completely deserted. The whole island was pretty much empty.
Yeah.
At the time of my life, but the way the people are there, it's insane. They literally just invite you into into their house. They cook for you, to do whatever they want. As long as they have the companionship, they're fine. And if you see how these people are living with supposedly nothing, primitive, having the day of their lives every single day.
It's,
Yeah.
you know, here's what we do know, guys. This has been tested all throughout history. I was reading a book, and the book was by Will Durant, and it talks about all the biggest philosophers in history and goes into their lives and just really dives into who these people were, what their philosophy was, and all that. And there was a guy named Spinoza. Okay, so but Spinoza was he was a guy that I think he lived back in the 1600s to 1700s. I think he was Dutch, if I'm not mistaken. But here's what he knew. A lot of times in philosophers' lives, they get persecuted, and it's because in order to think, you have to risk offending people, just like Peterson said, right? In order to think clearly and out in the open, you have to risk offending people. And many times these philosophers ended up stepping on the toes of the powerful people at the time. It's because they challenged the status quo about things. Spinoza made a point that absolutely blew my mind. What happened was he was chastised, he was outcast, pushed out from his community. I think it was a Puritan community at the time back then. And eventually people came around to a lot of his writings and a lot of his teachings towards the end of his life. And one of the rulers, I don't know if he's a king, I forgot who it was. I want to say like a Spanish king or ruler or something to that effect. They basically gave him the opportunity to take a stipend worth a lot of money for the rest of his life. Okay. As an appreciation for his contribution to society and his contribution to understanding what's important, what's not important, how to build society, etc. And Spinoza, who was dirt poor at the time, he lived upstairs in a small room in somebody else's house. He had a little apartment. He was a very, very simple man. He had not much money at all. And he basically made the point that I can't take the money. I really appreciate it. Thank you. But he knew in his personal reflections in his diary that money would change him as a man because it wasn't earned. He knew that. And guys, when I heard that, I had all these things just click. I thought I knew before, but then it clicked. There is something very tangible that happens to a person who gets money that they did not earn with the sweat of their own brow. It wasn't exchanged for one unit of labor. And he knew that, and many philosophers in the past knew that as well. They know what happens when democracies shift into, maybe monarchies, and then the monarchies start giving out welfare checks. And like, this isn't the first time it's happened in history. And the governments always do it under the guise and the premise of being benevolent and being caring, and they're going to care for their people. All the while, the whole process, they're just stripping people of freedom after freedom after freedom. And the people say, yes, give me more money. I'll give you all my freedom as long as you can take care of me. And that's where society falls. It all, guys, do not doubt me here. Nobody in chat doubt me. It all stems back to the fact that our money is wrong. There are different reasons and different routes that I go down than Richard, but we both come to the same conclusion. You have the ability to print unlimited money. It screws society. It screws every society that's ever existed. So,
100%.
yeah.
There was a movie that I saw once, and it was about jealousy or greed, and it was about an African tribe that was dropped a Coca-Cola bottle. Anyone familiar with it?
Not familiar.
No? Oh, they dropped a Coca-Cola bottle, but since it was the only Coca-Cola bottle in the whole tribe, it was unique. And then somebody started to make music on that Coke bottle. Now all of a sudden everybody wanted that Coke bottle. After a couple of months, the whole society, the whole village was ruined just of the jealousy created from one Coca-Cola bottle.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. That's a perfect illustration, man.
Yep. And it's just as true. It's probably more true today. You could probably get it'd be easier to do that today than 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's and gosh, man, that's like jealousy, and that just outlines the importance of having some sort of separation and accountability in between people. All right, when you group people together, then you're judged based on that group. But when you're individualistic and you have sovereignty and things like that, you were judged based on your actions and your actions alone. And you know, jealousy, man, that will destroy society in a really, really big way, man. Really big.
Yeah, one in chat just said it. The gods must be crazy. I think that was the one.
Yeah, dude, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, and this, like, you know, where do you go? What's the way out from it? You see, like, the BRICS nations now buying up gold, trying to launch a currency backed by gold and commodities. It's like it's going to take a lot for anybody to take the dollar off the throne. I don't even see that happening. Like, everything would have to collapse around us. And like, this is the price you pay for world peace. We bear the burden.
Yeah, it's I think here's what I think it's really barreling towards. I think it's barreling towards global socialism. And one of the reasons why I think it's barreling towards global socialism is because, just to take Hollywood, for example, all right, and take any of the movies and shows that you've watched over the past 30 years. One of the best ways to know what direction society is going is to see what types of movies are playing. Mm-hmm. And it all is like, I'll never forget this. And I was a kid. I was watching a Star Trek movie, and there was this kid, and I think he gets beamed up to the ship, okay, with, like, I don't know, it was Captain Picard, I think. And the kid was like, oh my God, man, look at this ship. How could anybody possibly pay for any of this? And Captain Picard says, well, you know, and the kid was from the past. Somehow he'd gotten to the future, the present. And Captain Picard says, well, son, you know, the economics of the future are a whole lot different than the economics of the past. And we work together as humanity and pool together funds and do really, really cool things. That's essentially what he said. And guess what happened? I'll never forget this. I sat back and I said, wow, that's brilliant. That's the direction that we need to go, guys. We need to pitch together all of our funds, and we just need to work, and we don't need any money, and let's just go explore the stars. Okay. And money, you know, money is so stupid. But that's the allure as a child, as a young person. It makes so much sense in your head logically. And it can even make sense in your head logically now. But you know where it doesn't make sense? When you have more wisdom. When you have more wisdom and you understand how the world works, you know that it does not work that way. So that's why people grew up socialists and they end up libertarians later in life, I think, for that reason.
But technically, there's no fixing it, isn't it? It's pretty much
it's
done
only
for. It's just
the debt
watching
ceiling
somebody
possible.
bleed out. It's like,
well, is there fixing it? There is a way to fix it. The only way to fix it is to lead by example. I'm a strong believer. If I'm talking about the United States, guess what? I am putting my weight behind the thing that I think can ultimately help fix everybody. And it's controversial and a lot of people don't like it. But I'm being straightforward. Does anybody else in the States right now see any other way than a state who has the power of people and the power of infrastructure and the power of money to stand up and say, you know what, enough is enough. We're not going to do it anymore. We have got to renegotiate this or we're out. Boom, gone. What other option? That's the only thing that anybody would ever take seriously. And it would get so much attention. And hopefully other people in other states would grow enough balls to hop on board and say, hey, we're coming to the negotiating table too with these folks. I don't see any other way, guys.
yeehaw.
Yeah. And again, this is as far from violent as possible. And I know that there are really mean, wicked, horrible, nasty people out there that want to take it that way. I don't want it to go to that. It doesn't have to be that way. We have examples over the past 50 years where it didn't get close to that. And I think it's just a huge tool to be able to help, man. The politicians, they're so far removed from who we are as a people. They're so far removed. And I don't know of any other way, because just imagine, we played this game for so many years in the States and the same outcomes, and it just keeps getting worse. Somebody come here and convince me that I'm wrong. Somebody. I'm begging anybody to, like in chat, or if you want to hit me up on YouTube, let's stream. Tell me why I'm wrong. It seems the most logical thing to me. And I think it would motivate people to change as well.
Yeah, 100%. That's why like people that do the right thing. And so it is like in the last couple of years, it's really been put into perspective that you got to support local, you got to support your community, and support people that will be there for you when you need something. Like, how many people you're like, all right, yeah, can I actually call that would drive over here right now 20 minutes if I needed something? And those are the people you want in your life.
Correct. And I can think of, certainly I count on one hand, it might be 3 or 4 people, maybe 3, definitely 2, maybe 3, like really. So,
and yeah, I think that's the difference between 50 years ago. That would have been everybody you know.
And why? Because they value you as a person, that if you go down, then the community hurts. You're valuable to that person. Just like you're valuable to that person today who you would call and say, hey, bro, I just robbed a bank. I need a bug out bag at these coordinates in 2 hours.
That happened.
And by the way, I need a plane ticket. I'm going to join the French Foreign Legion. You won't see me for 25 years, but I'll send paychecks back to my wife. So, but why? Why do they do that? Why do they go out of the way? Because you're valuable. You're a valuable person to their circle. And that's what it's all about,
Well, it's creating value and exchanging value, true value. Yeah, because right now, all we're exchanging with our neighbors in our community, if you don't actually know the people in your community, they're not even associates. They're just people in your community. Getting out there and getting to know these people, you're getting to know your neighbors. And if you could truly exchange something of value with your neighbor, then you don't need to worry about the rest of the noise. And you don't need to worry about exchanging things like paper that mean nothing. You can exchange something with your neighbor. For example, we have a beautiful neighbor that has offered to exchange me rhubarb which I'm not super crazy about, but like I'm really excited that she's looking to give it to me. And I have extra baby watermelons that I'm growing this summer. So in return, I will be sending her baby watermelons, and we can have a watermelon rhubarb party together. But if that was something I was seeking, rhubarb plants, for example, then I would be all set for the summer, and I would have no need for a middleman or other source. I can go straight to my neighbor, as you and I can do today, and transact without anything. It's amazing.
And that's what I love about you and Adam, Lindsay. I like that you guys are really, really pushing that community mindset, because, you know, something that Facing Reality said earlier was, in a matter of 10 or 20 years, it's like everybody had 3-meter fences and you couldn't talk to anybody. But with this, which you guys are suggesting, is that community matters. And I absolutely agree. It boils down to the smallest unit. In my mind, the smallest unit is the family. Okay. So it's mom, it's dad, it's children. And then it goes out from there. If that unit is strong, and I also think there's a massive spiritual aspect to that as well. If that unit is strong, then you can then build out. If you can take care of that part, then you can take care of the world. But don't try to take care of the world until you take care of that part. So that is super, super, super important. And this is what comes to mind too. It used to be a thing where you didn't necessarily go into business because you wanted to be rich. You went into business because you looked around your community and you saw that there was something missing. And you wanted to provide that service or that good to the community to make the community better. But that's not the way at all. Name me one person out there right now, one major influencer that teaches about entrepreneurship. It's all about you just blowing up on a global scale, scaling out, then getting the Lambos and then moving to Monaco or wherever you're going to go. It's not about keeping that money in your community. It's not about serving those people that helped raise you. It's not about that. And that's missing. So that's what I appreciate about you and Adam, definitely.
Oh, well, thank you. That is something that I'm so passionate about. I never would have escaped the debt slave race if I had not had nobody ever fought. Like when I was younger, nobody fostered entrepreneurship with me. Nobody had financial conversations with me. I was always taught to save like a good little monkey should. And when I had the inkling, I was sitting at work one day. I was a nurse. I was well above my position. I had a very lucrative job. Like I was doing very, very well for myself. And I actually sat there one day and I was like, why am I sitting here taking care of other people when my kids are in daycare? This is uncharted. I'm not okay with this. And I sat there and I looked at my friend. I was like, I'm quitting tomorrow and I'm starting a skincare business and I'm going international. I'm out of here. And I did. And I can take you there with me too. And that's like something I'm so passionate about, is because if I could sit there as a debt slave and have that thought and follow that thread, that thought,
mm-hmm.
You and I walk different paths, but you and I do not cross paths without synchronicity. And so like, no, if you're finding yourselves and you're hearing these people and you get ignited by their passion, that means that you have that spark within you too. It's just waiting to be united. So throw some gas on that thing. Not ETH. That's expensive these days.
Throw a beat on it.
Yeah, throw a beat on it.
Like, this is why, like, honestly, like it'll never be promoted, because this is the most powerful thing. Once you have that community and you grow, you have chickens, your neighbor has this, and you don't need money. You realize we don't even need money. We have everything here between us. And that's the biggest fear of, the elite or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
This world is in trouble if more moms were home with their babies. I'm just saying. Like, more mothers were home to raise good, strong young men, not be so distracted by all the nonsense out there, then we wouldn't be dealing with so many soy boys. We would not be drinking. We wouldn't be doing.
Guys, can I tell you
about
this?
Don't get me
started. I'm blown away, man. All right, so I don't know if I have. Shout out to Wales Only, by the way. Sorry, Wales. I can't even breathe. I've been talking so much here. So if I didn't let you guys into this drama, about 2 or 3 months ago, I get an email from my son's teacher. My son he's 5.5 years old, and he's been going to school since he's 2. Okay. And she says, I need a parent teacher conference. So it's okay. This is going to be good. So I go to the parent teacher conference, and her opening thesis statement here was, yeah, well, I think that if major changes aren't made before the end of the school year, then we're going to have to hold your son back. And I said, okay, so let's have the conversation. So now I'm in question mode. I am a straight up interrogator. I'm trying to find out where her brain is and how she's coming up to this. And I shit you not, guys, for an hour straight, for the first 45 minutes, it was me helping her sort through her thoughts about my son. Mind you, we find out it had absolutely nothing to do at all with his ability to read, with his ability to write. It had everything to do with her ability to control my son. On four separate occasions, she insinuates that he needed to go see a physician and that he needed to maybe seek some sort of treatment for his hyperactivity. And she says, well, I've been teaching for 20 years and I'm no expert, but XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. And I just, now let's fast forward. There's something called the Iowa standardized testing. Okay. So I took Iowa tests back when I was in public school a long time ago. They have a huge subset of data. Children, hundreds of, probably millions of children at this point over the past 40 or 50 years here. And I'm not 40 or 50 years old. I know there's some conspiracy theorists out there, but I'm not. Here's what I got back his test scores. The day before she says that he needs to be held back, his composite score says that he is essentially more well-developed academically than 87% of children his age in the whole country. And she's telling me that I need to hold my son back because he's hyper. And I'm going to tie this into what you said, Lindsay. They don't want men to be grown in this society. And it starts there. Can you imagine if I was a dumbass parent? Not a dumbass, we'll say dumbass, but not informed or not straightforward, and I was just a yes man. Can you imagine? I make the decision to hold my child back, and that screws his head up for the rest of his life. And I'm sorry, but that female teacher is trying to impress upon her female energy on that boy who is not going to freaking have it. He's not going to have it. And if I allow her to do that, which who knows how many people that she's done that to in the past, what does that child look like in 20 years? That's just the first domino, but it's a big domino. You know, you've seen those videos where they tick the domino and each domino it hits is a little bigger until the last domino is the size of an Empire State Building. That's kind of what this is. And it happens on so many levels. They are trying to crush that spirit and for a boy that age, it really is, in a way, it's a domineering spirit. He wants to go out and conquer shit. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to be in a classroom. I feel for him. I'm not holding him back. He's going to crush people. He's going to crush it in first grade, second grade, and third grade. And he's got to get out of the clutches of that woman, man. Hope she does. Well, if she sees it, it's all good. I already emailed her and said basically screw off, so it doesn't matter. But yeah.
But honestly, more educators in the public system need to be aware of how big of effect that they have on children, because I think for some reason they've fallen away from that, because they spend, from my experience of having children in the public education system, not my choice, by the way. It's upset. Yeah. Anyway, so they're with these other women, and they're with these women that don't want to be there because they're away from their kids, and these women are like, they're mad, they're fearful, there's so many emotions, and these kids these days, sons like yours, who are not meant to fall in a ticky-tacky box. You can't make me go in a round hole. I'm a square peg. You know, you can't make me. And the thinkers, they just want to stamp them down harder and squish them. They want to diagnose them. They want to give them medication. They want to put them in a corner. They want to put them in a quiet, dark room. Are you serious? No, it's sit up, grab your pencil, pay attention to me. Let's go. It's not, okay, little buddy, come snuggle in the corner. No wonder you're exhausted at the end of the day. That's nonsense. Like, if you were actually speaking your truth as a woman in directing a child to what they needed to do, it's hard because these kids, and they're not your kids either. These are teachers coming out, but that's the point. It's someone else's belief system being instilled into your child. And it's the frustration that they get with screaming at the class. Like, my child does not deserve to be screamed at because you're frustrated. That's your problem. Anyway.
It's so petty, man. It's petty stuff. It's so hard. It's so hard to deal with. Guys, you have got to take major roles in the development of your child, and you cannot export that responsibility to anybody else, because they will not care about your child more than you. And your child is the most valuable thing that you have. It is your reflection. It is your blood, and you can't squander it. Their brain is just a giant ball of mush at the beginning, and it's up to you to help develop it. And if you let somebody else develop it, you don't know who you're going to get on the other side. And this is crazy. Now, here's what's even I'm paying these people, man. I'm sending my kid to a private school, and you got to look at the curriculum. You got to sit down, you got to ask questions, and you have got to be militant about the outcomes that you expect for your child with your teachers. It's so important, man. So this was a really cool learning experience for me, and we're not holding his ass back. We will, here's what I do know. He is a kid. I could keep freaking ranting. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight, dude.
Trust me, it's like talking to myself or listening to myself at the moment. It's insane.
Those philosophers in that philosophy book, when they're talking about how to educate children, they said no child should be in a classroom setting until 9 years old.
Yep.
The only thing that should be focused on from the age of like 5 to 9 years old is morals and ethics.
Yes.
That's it.
Those are those years, 5 to 7. Those are the most impressionable years of your child's life. And then 5 to 9.
How did they get it right back then? And we can't get it right now. It's because they don't want to get it right. It's not the point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they literally force your kid to make a decision for the rest of their lives, even though they don't even know the basic things of being.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane. They just came off the tricycle, and then a teacher come. You got to plan out your complete future for the next 50 years at the age of 12.
Yeah.
Are you freaking kidding me?
The further that I go down, man, the further that I go down this road, and I created this rule for myself a long time ago. If a liberal or leftist tell me something that's true, 98% of the time it's a lie. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Think about anything in life that came from somebody who's left-leaning in a position of power, or the media or whatever. It's a lie. Everybody knows that, but now it's just like, gosh, dude, conventional wisdom. They say, oh, it's conventional wisdom and it's common sense, and this is what you should do to be an upstanding citizen, and this is how you should raise your children, and here's some Adderall, and here's some Ativan, and here's some something, whatever. And Hexaquins, here's some boner pills from the gas station. That's what she's saying. That's not what she said. But guys, 95%, I just don't trust it. I don't trust it until I can verify it. You just can't, man, because I didn't realize how much people were lying to us. It's crazy.
Yeah. I wasn't planning to go to Portugal at the time that I did, because it was actually planned for 25 or 26 after the next bull run. But since I couldn't stand my kids being any day longer in this indoctrination camp called school, and since I'm living in the only country in the world where my kids is obligated to go to school until the age of 18, and I can't even homeschool them. If I don't send them to school, I literally go to jail.
It's crazy.
And then people ask me why I want to flee the Netherlands.
What's more dangerous? Is it? I mean, it's like, is it more dangerous to have the government own the monetary system or own the education system? I might say the education system.
education, because
100%,
that's the new
education.
generation that rules or
That's wild,
roams
man.
the world like sheep.
And that's it. Don't governments all across the world probably own like 95% of public education from primary, secondary, all the way up to university?
Yeah. So this whole step that we just went through with the whole restructuring of the economic system, they did exactly the same thing with the schooling system. So in the First World War, they pretty much burned the complete known schooling system to the ground. And then they even did it worse in the Second World War. There was no book around in education. And if you look now, that all the educational books are from after the Second World War and worldwide come from the same publisher.
Dude, it's crazy that the philosopher book that I was reading, I couldn't find much stuff on philosophy from pretty much like 1960 to about the 2000s. So I found this guy back in 1965 that wrote this incredible book going way back into history. But it's like, there, you know, and this is on my Twitter. This happened probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I said that we need to create a bill to make it 100% illegal for the government to ban or banish any type of literature before the year 2000. I really, really think that. And it's why is that? It's because if we go all digital, then you can boil that frog over hundreds of years, and you can make minute changes to literature over hundreds of years, and you can completely change society, and nobody will know any different if it's all digital. You got to have something physical. So it's crazy, man. Crazy.
What's crazy is that kids these days are losing the ability to grip their pencils and write. Like I've noticed a lot with handwriting out there. Looking at the handwriting, like, what the heck is so bad? I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, so much of their schooling is done through tablets that they're not actually like using their muscles to handwrite. So every day I'm like a psycho with my kids. I'm like, did you write 5 things you're grateful for? Have you written in your journal tonight? They're like, wow, why do we have to write so much? I'm like, because it's such a valuable skill you're gonna lose. No,
right. Well, and you know why else it's extremely valuable? It's because writing is thinking. That's the biggest part. If you don't know how to write, then you don't know how to think. And it starts the actual motor function of doing it, but it develops into something very, very cool in the future. So the ability to write is the ability to think. And maybe that's why they're going all tablets, because they just don't want people thinking, man. They're just doing you know what's crazy? I heard this too. Guys, auto manufacturers are now taking out AM radio out of vehicles. Do you know what AM radio represents for so many people across the United States? It represents their only connection to any sort of logic or reasoning. It's quote unquote right-wing radio. And I was like, wow. Like, I actually had respect for how brilliant that was, even though it's so horrible and damaging. They want to control the information flow, and they're just going to chop AM. I said, that is crazy, dude. You should look it up. I heard it the other day.
What is it? Like the Freedom Act Part 2?
They made up some bullshit excuse about how these new cars could have some type of interference with some type of motherboard inside some type of something somewhere in the car. So
it's just a low frequency. The beauty of AM is that it has a way too far reach.
Yeah.
I think that's their problem. They don't want people to have such a big distance and such a basic tech to communicate with one another.
Wouldn't that kind of negate Starlink, or maybe point to it's not coming from up, it's actually on the ground, or locally with balloons?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this: when shit hits the fan, there's a lot of people using AM radio to communicate.
Still have it. The whole family.
So why would they want to be taking that out? You know, Yeah, AM. Yeah, exactly. T. Gray. AM is the places where ideas are shared. And they can't have that. It's so important. That's so that I just sat back in my car. I'm in traffic, and I'm listening, and I just exhaled and sat back in my seat. I said, "Wow, it's coming to this." So yeah, there it is. Is this it?
Yeah, this is it. Farley said that Ford will offer software update on the road today without AM broadcast capability. Executive notably did not promise to keep the AM radios. So anyway, they're saying that it's like it's a major broadcasting system that they're looking to revoke from these vehicles.
Yeah, isn't that wild? And we're all going electric.
Installed in vehicles.
That's great. We can go electric, so you can go 400 miles and not find a charger. Be stuck forever.
Yeah. Ford is also AM from the 2023 Mustang Mach-E and the F-150 Lightning electric pickup after data. So electric vehicles no longer need. Well, I mean, I guess if you think you went to the moon, then I guess you don't. Need right.
Yeah, AM also works
from
in
lawmakers.
tunnels.
Lawmakers. Yeah. Look at that. It didn't even come from the manufacturers.
See, the little things you see, like when you actually look at this stuff from a different angle and you see that, you're like 99% of people look at it and they just breezes right over their heads. It's like, wait a minute.
I would never have even known that if I hadn't listened to AM radio as a child. And also I remember that actually, you know what, facing reality, I cut you off, man. I think we did. What were you going to say?
Oh no, that AM radio also works in tunnels and under bridges, and it has a very bigger reach. So FM radio, as soon as you go into a tunnel, doesn't matter how small or how long, usually your radio cuts out. But AM just goes on because it's a low frequency. It's a very higher penetration value than high frequency.
I just thought such a 1984 George Orwell vibe. I was like, ah.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I have not heard anybody on the internet anywhere or on the radio talking about this. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Are they just coming in like a thief in the night, knowing that all vehicles are going electric and they can come up with some bullshit idea to pull AM radio out? Dude, this is crazy to me. Crazy.
Yeah.
For communication purposes and for purposes of sharing ideas and understanding what type of ideas live on AM radio all across the states. Facing reality, it's a big thing in the States. AM radio is like huge.
Here, it's exactly the same.
Okay, cool.
Every time we have the same discussion, they've been cutting down the amount of power that you can use to transmit. Every several years, you are no longer allowed to. I think we're now at 5 watts or something. Like,
yeah. That's it?
That's it.
That's wild, dude.
It's insane.
I'm having.
Yeah. It's all 27 MC.
Charge your car.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I guess
15-minute cities sound like hell. Like, oh no, the charging station is full. I can't charge my car. I'm stuck.
Oh, gosh, man.
Just to start your day off. That sounds horrible.
What I don't understand is that we have supposedly the brightest minds in the world thinking about how we can implement electric vehicles. We are now a decade in, more and more people starting electric vehicles, but none of them, even though they're all from the electric background, thought about Ohm's law.
Ohm's law in terms of resistance?
Yeah. How you gonna provide every citizen with a 200 amp surface to charge their car if you have Ohm's law?
It's impossible.
It's impossible, literally.
Well,
you couldn't even do 2 in one street, probably, let alone the 1,500 that live there. It's
look at how like they're getting so far away from things that are manually fixable too, like standard cars. And look at let's go, like zoom out from Ford and go to John Deere for a second. Look at the difference between the tractors that were made from John Deere and like back in the day. And now look at them. They're all computerized. They're all motherboarded. They're all like, so that you have to depend on someone else or some system, or you have to really chunk that and buy a whole new one. You can't just go and buy a new spark plug now, like, you know, with this sweet Sub Cadet I'm driving. But like, so all these things are getting removed away from us. They're saying like, oh, we're all going to be driving electric vehicles. Okay, if you actually step back from that for a second, and you realize that there's no possible way that we could possibly all do that.
Yeah.
Or a maintenance schedule to charge our cars. Okay.
Well, imagine you have a Tesla, and the government contacts Tesla, and they're like, "Hey, this guy wasn't OFAC compliant. He used Tornado.cash," and they make Tesla press a button, and your car drives itself to the IRS. You can't move.
You're
scary.
You're not kidding, and you're not far off too. Ford, actually, I don't know where the article is, but Ford released in the Mustang that they're speaking about with removing the AM radio. They also implemented and patented the technology for self-driving capabilities for repossession of cars. So if you have a Mustang and it's in repossession mode, your car now, but they don't plan on deploying it. And does this sound familiar to anybody else? They don't plan on deploying it, but they have the capabilities to do such actions if they choose. So if it comes down and they're forced to repossess your car, your Mustang now will back itself out of a driveway and drive itself to the nearest parking lot to be picked up from a repo man safely, so that they don't have to interact with you. People don't know about that. What?
I don't know about that.
That's nuts. That's not cool.
Not long before we're living in Judge Dredd.
Well, I was like, how dumb are you? Just put a sawhorse in the front and the back, and then your rear sensors, you'd be like, boop, 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 boop. Your car wouldn't be able to go anywhere. It'd be boxed in and too smart to get itself out.
Was that
true?
Was that with Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah.
Judge Dredd?
Yeah.
And Sandra Bullock? Was it Sandra Bullock?
I think, was it
where they were
Bullock?
like, where he was
seashells.
He was trying to hook up with her.
Oh yeah, the virtual reality thing.
The VR. He's like, what the hell is this?
Yep.
Wow.
We're getting there.
Yeah. All the more reason to build our own supply chains, our own everything. It's not out of the question. Within 10 years, why can't we have our own schools for kids, our own, food stores?
We can
for sure.
We're so close, guys. We're here, guys. I'll tell you this, man. I'm going to say this. Nobody's seen nothing. When this community gets capitalized the way that we really, really need to get capitalized, there are a handful of people in this community that I will go into battle with, man. And I think that's what we're going to do, because we really want to change things. We want to make things good for our kids. And what's life worth living if you don't put it on the line and go try to fix it, man? And I'm all about that.
Amen.
I just don't want to have regrets when I'm on my deathbed. That's important to me. I want to go fix it. And I hate being pissed off about something and not saying or doing something about it.
It's like that's funny you say that. Like when you look at people that have interviewed a lot of people that were very wealthy, and on their deathbed, they ask them their list of regrets. And every time what comes up is, I wish I spent more time with my family. Was it all worth it? No, it was not. I would not do it again. Everybody's telling you it's not worth it. I wish I did it differently. And it's a trap you fall into and you just can't get out, or you don't see. There's so many different ways it can happen. And you end up on your deathbed regretting everything.
Yeah.
Don't do it. I've been there. I've worked in the industry. I saw so many people they're slipping away, and they're honestly, so many people regretted the lack of time and the lack of chances that they took because they were too scared to do it at the time. They were so regretful. Like, why didn't I I knew I could have been brave enough. Like, think about it now in retrospect. Like, if you could be brave enough, then you can be brave enough now.
You know, it's crazy. We've got everything we need to solve all the problems right now. We just don't have the platform yet.
Yep.
So, I mean, think about, all right, so let's just take HEX. And here, what I don't like getting involved with when people talk about HEX is just I just don't like sucking Hex's D for no reason. All right, here's something that I'd really, really love about this asset. If the United States government, the second that a child was born, opened up a 15-year stake for every kid, okay, with $1,000, $2,000, based on the birth rates every year, what's that going to cost them? Like $20 or $30 billion? Guys, what do you think is going to happen, man? The solutions are already there. The child's solid by that time. They already do it with 401ks, and the money gets squandered into oblivion. Well, they can't squander something that's algorithmically encoded and locked up. You can't do it. So the answers are there. You just don't have the platform yet.
Yeah, that's why we need to keep encouraging others to connect with their community in a way that's meaningful, even if it's just the neighbor that you never talk to, the neighbor you never wave to. Just our neighbors are so unfriendly. Like, they will not come over and say hello. Like, our neighbors on the other side are like friendly, say hello many times, but right next door they're like, and I'll wave. I'm like, hey, and I get one hand like this, and I'm like, all right, well, apparently you're not my cup of tea either, but that doesn't mean that if you need a cup of sugar, I wouldn't happily give you one. We don't have to be best friends, but in order to, cooperate and communicate and to grow a community together, that's really where it starts. Like you said, Rags, it starts at home. It starts with honing in and being present with your family, being present with your children, being present with your spouse or your significant other, whatever that means to you, being present in those things. And then once you hone in on that energy in your home, you can grow that and share that with others outside of you. It is contagious. Like, misery loves company, but a party loves a good time too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Lindsay, that's a powerful statement. It is contagious. That before you said that, I thought about it and it rolled off your lips. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what it is. And you're leading by example, and people need to see example because they've not learned. So
yeah, I thought, well, it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. Life's busy and it's scary, and there's a lot. It's overwhelming. But if you can sit back and not think about what you lack, but think about how you get to do this, how you get to participate in this market, in this moment, in this period of time. You are the privileged one. You are part of the new 1%. Now stand up and act like it. You know?
Yeah. People are so out of tune. So close to 2 weeks ago, I got new neighbors, and they have 3 kids, 9, 7, and 5, I believe. And they were remodeling everything. They need to hurry a lot. And 2 days ago, the oldest kid turned 9, and it was extremely hot outside. So I started talking with the neighbor. He was barbecuing. I said, if the kids are hot, I got a big ass pool here. They can have a good time. But there were a lot of kids over. He said, really? You would allow? I said, yeah. Why do you think I have a pool?
right.
It needs to be used. So I had about 6 kids over, everybody in the same person's swimwear, and they had a lot of fun. But
is the pool the shape of a flat Earth or no?
Well, the water is flat, but yeah, it's a concave pool. Yeah, but they can't believe it. They just can't believe that somebody would open up their house for somebody else. It's even though when I grew up, it was normal. You were literally corrected by a neighbor.
Yeah, that will be the new normal.
Yeah.
And
we all
what's
did it
one
together.
Of the number one indicators of psychological issues is when you don't have interaction with other human beings. And we're seeing that on a societal level.
Yep.
More and more and more. And that's probably not a good thing.
Not really.
No, once you become so disassociated with energy, then it's hard to determine what's yours and what's someone else's. And when you're continuously taking on someone else's energy, it's hard to even separate the two. Sometimes you really have to push it back and be like, okay, listen, this is not my fear. This is someone else's. This is not my belief system. That's someone else's. And then you have to be basically it all boils down to security with money, security with self, security, period. You just have to be grounded and know who you are, know what you want, know what you believe in. And then you can help, you've facilitated it yourself. like you said, you have to put the oxygen mask on. You have to put the oxygen mask on. You have to save yourself and your family before you can go out there and save the world. So like little things and inspired snowballs, big change,
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. This was awesome. We didn't even get to the history of money to crypto, so we're going to have to do a part 2, pretty please.
We can do that.
Okay.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. Please like and subscribe to Facing Reality. Find him on Twitter. Find Rags to Riches on Twitter. Find Vibra Finance on Twitter. And like, subscribe, hit the bell button, all for notifications so that you can get more exciting, informative, and true content like this. So without further ado, is there anything you guys would like to add or share for anything?
Do not like, comment, or subscribe to my channel. I am restreaming this. I want to make that clear to my followers. Thank you.
Everybody,
I would second that.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You can catch us live tomorrow morning at 9:30 for some crypto market news. Until then, we will see you later. Hodl strong, hold safe, and kiss your loved ones. Good night. And that's all. Bye, guys.